There is a place inside you that has been silent for a long time, not because it had nothing to say, but because you asked it, very early, to be quiet, and it has been obedient ever since. It is the place that knows the weight of a smile you wore while something inside you was breaking. The place that remembers every conversation you ended a little too quickly because the truth was rising in your throat and you swallowed it back down. The place that watched you hold another person's hand and wonder, in a voice too soft to admit, whether anyone in this world would ever hold yours in quite the same way. I did not come here tonight to give you a speech about victory, and I did not come to convince you that everything is already fine. I came here to sit for a few minutes with that silent place inside you and to tell you that I see it, and that what you are feeling is not a flaw in your design. It is a doorway that has been waiting for you to notice it. Tonight I want to speak to the part of you that no one else sees, the part that is exhausted, the part that has been strong for so long that even you have forgotten that you are allowed to be anything else. I want to speak to the chosen one, the authentic one, the one who appears unshakable in front of the world, and who, behind the closed door of an evening, sits alone with a heaviness that has no clear name. You know exactly who you are. You have always known. You are the one who learned very young that if you wanted to be loved, you had to be useful, that if you wanted to be kept, you had to be needed, that if you wanted to be welcomed into a room, you had to first become the person the room was asking for, even when the room was asking for someone who did not exist. So you built a version of yourself that could survive. You learned the language of the people who wanted you. You made yourself small where the world was loud, and large where the world demanded performance, and somewhere in the middle of all that bending, a quiet question began to form. A question you did not dare to ask out loud, because asking it would mean admitting that the life you had so carefully constructed was never quite the one your soul had asked for. The question was simple, and it was devastating. Where did I go? And tonight, if you are listening with that part of you that no one sees, you already know the answer. You did not leave yourself anywhere. You were taken from yourself. Slowly, gently, by people who needed your light more than they respected it, by friends who only called when they needed something, by lovers who loved the version of you that made their life easier and disappeared the moment you needed them to stay, by family members who turned your kindness into a quiet debt you were never allowed to repay, by voices that praised you in public and dissected you in private, and who smiled at you the next morning as if nothing had ever been said at all. You gave, and you gave, and you gave, and somewhere along the way you stopped asking what would be given back to you, not because you did not need it, but because asking felt like a risk you could no longer afford. And so you learned to live with a quiet, persistent ache that you described to yourself as tiredness or stress, or the natural cost of being a responsible adult. You told yourself that everyone carries something. You told yourself that you were being dramatic. You told yourself that other people had it worse and that you had no right to your own grief when the world had so many louder griefs of its own, and so the wound stayed. Not because no one noticed it, but because no one, including you, allowed it to be a wound. It was renamed. It was rationalized. It was packed into a corner of your life where no one was allowed to look, and you kept walking, and you kept performing, and you kept being the person everyone relied on, while the part of you that had been left behind grew more and more silent. But here is what I want you to understand, and I want you to hear this as clearly as you have ever heard anything in your life. A wound that is not allowed to be a wound does not heal, it only learns to hide, and a part of you that has been hiding for long enough will eventually in its own time begin to knock, not gently, not politely. It will begin to knock with the kind of insistence that no longer responds to distraction, to productivity, to the next project, to the next relationship, to the next version of the same life you have been living for years. It will knock in the middle of an ordinary afternoon when you are driving home from a meeting you cannot remember the contents of. It will knock in the quiet of a Sunday morning when the noise of the world has paused and you are suddenly terrifyingly alone with yourself. It will knock at the end of a long day when you finally sit down and realize that you have not once, all day, been honest about what you are actually feeling. The knocking is not a sign that you are falling apart. The knocking is a sign that the part of you that was taken is finally, after years of waiting, asking for its life back. And that is not weakness. That is not instability. That is the most honest thing your soul has done in a very long time. You are not becoming someone new. You are remembering someone who was always there, underneath. Someone who had preferences, who had softness, who had a way of moving through the world that did not require permission. Someone who was playful before they were taught to be careful. Someone who was loud before they were taught to be polite. Someone who trusted before they were taught, by experience, that trust is sometimes a door that opens onto a room you should never have entered. That person is not gone. They have only been waiting. And the exhaustion you feel, the heaviness that follows you from one day to the next, the sense that you are walking through your own life as a guest in a house you're supposed to own, all of that is not a verdict. It is a summons. It is the part of you that was taken, calling you back to yourself. I want to slow down here because this is the moment in this conversation where most people quietly close the window. I have just named something in you that you have spent a long time not naming. And if you are honest, the part of you that is listening right now is not entirely comfortable. Not because what I am saying is wrong, but because what I am saying is true. And truth, when it has been postponed for long enough, has a way of making the whole body pay attention. I am not going to ask you to fix anything tonight. I am not going to give you a method, a formula, a set of instructions, a speech about how to recover, a motivational sentence to write on your mirror, a morning routine to overhaul your nervous system, a list of habits that will undo the years. That is not why you are here. You are here because something in you for the first time in a long time is willing to be seen, and the most respectful thing I can do, in this moment, is not to rush past that. Naming the wound, the way we have just done together, is not the same as healing the wound. Hearing a few true sentences is not the same as walking through a structured path of return. You can understand with perfect clarity that something in you was taken, and still wake up tomorrow morning carrying the same invisible weight. You can know intellectually that you have been hiding your suffering and still find yourself, by Sunday evening, performing for people you no longer want to be in a room with. Understanding is a lantern. It illuminates the room you're standing in, but a lantern does not, on its own, walk you out of the house. It only shows you that the house has rooms you have not entered, doors you have not opened, and a quiet threshold at the back that no one else can walk through for you. There is a guided path, and it is called the 7-day ritual, the crossing, with the simple promise underneath it. 7 days to become whole again. It is not a course. It is not a community. It is not a lecture series, a subscription, a set of techniques to memorize, or a movement to join. It is a quiet, immersive audio journey, designed to be experienced gradually, one day at a time, in the privacy of your own inner life. Over 7 symbolic days, you are accompanied through 7 thresholds: water and salt, the mirror, the candle, the earth, the coin, the breath, the silence. I am going to say those names to you, and I want you to notice what happens inside you as you hear them. Notice whether any of them stir something, whether any of them feel strangely familiar, whether any of them seem to be pointing, without explanation, at something you have been avoiding. I am not going to tell you what they mean, and I am not going to tell you what to do with them. Their meaning is not something you receive from a sentence in a YouTube video. Their meaning is something you will only discover by stepping onto the path itself, slowly, with the kind of attention that cannot be rushed. What I will tell you is this. Each of those 7 days is a doorway. Each one is short enough to fit into an ordinary evening, and deep enough to alter the shape of an ordinary life. Together they form a structured crossing, an inner return, a guided space in which the scattered parts of you that you have been carrying in different rooms of your life finally begin, with great gentleness, to come back to one table. The full experience is available in its entirety in the first pinned comment beneath this video. The access is instant, the audios are yours for life, and the journey is designed to begin the moment you decide that the next 7 days are going to belong to you. But the journey is not this video. The journey is what happens when you press play on the first audio in a quiet room with the kind of intention that cannot be performed for an audience. So I will not give you the crossing tonight. I will only give you the door, and I will leave you standing in front of it, because that is exactly where you need to be. Now let us continue slowly, because there is still more to say, and I do not want to leave you in a hurry. The 7 names I just spoke are not random. They were not chosen because they sound poetic. They were chosen because each one of them corresponds to a layer of the inner self that, in most lives, is forgotten. There is the layer that needs to be cleansed, and that is what the first day, in its own quiet way, will gently begin. There is the layer that has been hiding from its own reflection, and that is what the second day will, with great care, invite you to face. There is the layer that has been carrying an inner light for years and has never been allowed to let it burn steadily, and that is what the third day will, for the first time, ask you to protect. There is the layer that has lost its ground, the part of you that no longer feels rooted in your own body, in your own story, in your own name. And that is what the fourth day will, with great patience, help you to feel beneath your feet again. There is the layer that has been giving itself away for free, scattering its energy into the hands of people who never intended to return it, and that is what the fifth day will, with surprising precision, help you to call back. There is the layer that has forgotten how to breathe without performing the breath, and that is what the sixth day will, in its own silent way, restore. And there is the layer that has never been given the gift of an uninterrupted, undefended, unobserved silence, and that is what the seventh day will finally offer. I am telling you this not so that you can do it on your own tonight, but so that you understand why a path like this exists. The wounds you are carrying are not single wounds. They are layered, and a single piece of advice, a single affirmation, a single motivational speech, even one as honest as the one we are having right now, cannot reach every layer at once. That is why the crossing takes 7 days. Not because the number is sacred, although the number is sacred, but because a return to wholeness is not an event. It is a sequence. It is a sequence of small, deliberate, almost invisible acts of returning to yourself, until the day you realize, somewhere around the 6th or 7th threshold, that the person you have been waiting to become was, in fact, the person who was waiting to come home. I do not know what your crossing will look like, and I do not know which of the 7 days will be the one that finally unlocks something in you. I do not know whether the mirror day will be the one that makes you weep, or the breath day, or the silence. I do not know whether the candle will be the one that holds you, or the earth, or the coin. But I do know, with a certainty that does not require proof, that something in you has been asking for a structured space of return, and that a guided path held by something larger than a single video, a single voice, a single evening, is what the part of you that has been knocking is actually asking for. The product is not the answer. The product is the room. The answer is the one you will become, slowly, in the privacy of that room, day by day, audio by audio, when you finally give yourself the 7 days that no one else ever thought to give you. And so I want to leave you here, with great care, at the end of this conversation. Not with a victory speech, and not with a closing formula, and not with the kind of final applause that YouTube so often demands. I want to leave you standing, quietly, in front of the door of your own crossing, because that is exactly where you are. You understand now why a part of you has remained trapped in the past. You understand why the same people, the same patterns, the same betrayals, the same invisible weight keep returning in different forms, season after season. You understand that time on its own has not been enough, and that the wounds you have been carrying were never healed. They were only ever hidden, and the hiding cost you more than the wound ever did. You understand that a part of you has been waiting, and that its waiting is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of readiness. You understand that a structured path of return exists, and that it does not ask you to perform, or to be strong, or to prove anything to anyone. It only asks you for 7 days to show up for yourself. And you understand that you have not yet crossed, that your crossing has not yet begun, that what you have just experienced is the lantern, not the house, the doorway, not the room, the recognition, not the return. You are not at the end of anything tonight. You are, for the first time in a very long time, at a beginning that is honest. And the only question I want to leave you with, the only question worth asking at the end of an evening like this, is not whether you deserve the crossing. You do. You always did. The only question is whether you are willing, in the next 7 days, to give yourself what no one else ever thought to give you. A quiet room, a guided voice, a door. The crossing itself, when you are ready, is one click away in the first pinned comment beneath this video. I will not say another word tonight. I will only say this, the chosen one, the authentic one, the part of you that has been silent for so long it heard every word, and it is ready. The rest belongs to the 7 days that are waiting for you.